is very important to us.
You're listening to Team Call with Beaxy, your direct line into daily conversations with the team behind one of Chicago's fastest growing Bitcoin startups. In each episode, you'll gain firsthand insight on topics ranging from entrepreneurship and operation strategy to technology and cryptocurrency market analysis. Whether you're looking to level up your trading acumen or you just want some alpha on how to run a startup in crypto land, you'll hear about it on Team Call. So who's already on? Beaksy's co-president, Bay Abbott, in addition to James Carney and Steve Savacleos, who head up the marketing team, and Cooper Craighead, director of customer support. Let's join in.
There's always, especially if you live in any kind of city too, there's always those like drills, jackhammers, like cranes, people yelling, like standard for the course outside my window.
For a little over a decade, I lived above an auto body shop.
Oh man.
And like most of the time it wasn't too bad, but every once in a while, like the car that they would be working on directly under me would require grinding or hammering or something at like 8 o'clock in the morning. So just waking up to like metal grinding on metal.
Wonderful.
Fantastic.
That's a once a week ordeal down here too. Like with the HOAs, they do like landscaping and all that at like 7 o'clock in the morning.
Oh God.
Bright and early.
Great.
The hell is wrong with them?
Right.
So I haven't looked today, but I felt like the market was a little bit more buoyant than it had been earlier this week.
Like a nice little dump there in the last 20 minutes. I think the equities open, shut it down a bit. The legacy markets aren't down that much though.
Bay insists that we're still in a macro upcycle, so he's sticking to it.
I mean, a lot of the charts do. Bitcoin hasn't made a lower low. ETH hasn't made a lower low on the longer trends, like on a year trend.
Yeah, I was reading on CoinDesk earlier that everybody's worried about the Fed moving up interest rate hike, expedited the process now like May of 2022 when they're going to raise interest rates. But CoinDesk was saying essentially that news is already priced in. People have already expected that. So it's like a pretty good time to buy because I guess it may not go much lower. We've about suffered the full impact of what, the Fed's interest rate hike is going to do to us. It's almost like a reverse buy the rumor. It's a buy it before the impact and the effect is already happening. In other words,
I'd agree with that because that's something that like analysts, every big bank, like they're watching that stuff like a hawk. Like that stuff's, it's always priced in. There's nothing ambiguous about that. I mean, they were, I don't want to say deceitful, but playing around with words like transitory and then like, oh, maybe it's not transitory, but I mean, that stuff's easy to get a read on.
Yeah. I feel like Warren had some pretty funny quote about like, oh, it's just Thanksgiving turkeys that are causing inflation. But yeah, anyway, I saw that our payment partner Ramp just closed like a pretty significant fundraise round. I don't know if you guys saw that story I sent out earlier.
50 million, right? Yeah.
Nice.
Good for them. That's big.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, they're kind of like becoming like a pretty serious DeFi gateway for all these play to earn games and stuff like that. People that aren't in crypto before but need to get in fast. Like once they're already at the website, they can just use Ramp SDK. Their widgets make it really easy to white label their stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we've used a lot of them. I think we would all be in agreement that it's the easiest to use and they seem to have better rates than everyone.
Yeah. Thus far. Anyway, so big news on that front. There was a piece of news that I was playing around with, mostly just an interest standpoint, but apparently Bored Ape Yacht Club is going to make like a game in Q2 2022. Did you guys hear about
I have not seen that.
Yeah. They partnered with Animoca to do like a Bored Ape Yacht Club video game of sorts.
I'm trying to think for something that big, that that really could gain some traction. But that's one where it's like the NFTs themselves, like I don't know the mass marketability because they're so expensive.
It seems like a lot of these NFT projects are putting a game on the table. I don't know how many of them are actually going to pan out, but it seems like a lot of them aren't like ruling that out. So most of the ones that, did a mint or have cards are fully planning on a video game, or at least telling their investors that they are. But yeah, we'll see how many of them become actually widely played.
I'd be interested to see how you could integrate something like the Bored Ape Club into a game. I mean, like things like Parallel, where it's just actual cards, like that's, it's very straightforward how you could make a game out of that.
Right. The ones that were like designed as games, or they had like a game was the plan from the beginning, seemed to make more sense than like something where it was released solely as like an avatar status symbol. And now they're like, wait, we have to provide value for this.
Now you've got to come up with a scenario, like a compelling video game scenario, like ex post facto.
Yeah.
I mean, they are cool looking characters, the Bored Ape Yacht Club. So,
but what would these characters do? You know, like in a
That's the
video
question.
game that you'd
Yeah.
want to play, what are they going to do? Like,
Yep.
Almost be better off like trying to do like a web show or something like that.
I could see that taking off if they had like a series where those characters have all, their own personalities and character lines and all that and arcs.
maybe they should just do like a big battle royale game where like whatever NFTs you have, you can render them into like a warrior type character, and you can just fight with them. I don't know.
And I mean, at that point, you could expand it into weapons and all kinds of other stuff
Yeah.
for the NFTs.
That reminds me, that whole thing with Ubisoft apparently went off as just an absolute nightmare. Like it's one of these conversations that I'm kind of interested in the crypto space, which is like, for some reason, traditional video gamers absolutely hate crypto. And anytime like a big video game company, whether it's Discord or Ubisoft, tries to make like a little feint, like to dip their toes in the water, they get absolutely destroyed by like their like longtime incumbent constituent veteran gamers. I guess like 96% negative reaction on the Ubisoft's venture into NFTs for Ghost Recon. And they're just like, it's a clear just cash grab. They're trying to nickel and dime us and squeeze more cash out of Ghost Recon.
I mean, did you see like the parameters around it? Did it seem like that? Because it could go the complete opposite way. It could be a mechanism for the user to make a ton of money.
I know, that's what I thought.
It could go both ways, right?
Yeah. That's what I thought. I guess it just depends on how widely played like the franchise is and like whether they're committed to continuing it. Like you're not going to buy NFTs for something that's like a game that's not going to be popular next year. But yeah, like they're minted on Tezos, and I guess they did all their homework to make sure they weren't going to get destroyed for destroying the environment. But like people have found another way to stab it to death. It reminded me of the whole thing. Yeah. It reminded me what happened with Discord, where they said they were going to integrate MetaMask, and then like you had so much outrage. They were like, actually, just kidding. We're not integrating MetaMask.
I honestly think that posed a lot of security issues anyways, because there's so many scammers on Discord. Just so many people would get wrecked connecting their MetaMask there and just clicking on the wrong shit.
Yeah, that's a big problem.
Not ready for that. I mean, it does happen anyways. Yeah.
With browser extensions in Chrome, like there's so many different ones, and I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of different ways for a lot of different security loopholes there.
You just got to make sure you're on the right URL. I triple check them every time before. I mean, I use bookmarks too. That's what I would recommend to everyone. Go to OpenSea, make sure you're on the right spot, make a bookmark, and then just always use that bookmark.
Okay. Yeah, that's smart.
I wonder how much of the gamer hatred of crypto stems from the grab for all GPUs for mining.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting point.
You used to be able to get like a very high end graphics card for less than $1,000, and now you're very lucky to get any graphics card for less than like $700 or $800.
Yeah, and that's probably in major part attributed to just mining, right? Because it creates like a huge scarcity, or at least a huge competition for them.
Yeah, it's 100% because of mining. Like every, even like a home mining rig can use 4 or 5 cards pretty easily. And all of the major producers of graphics cards actually started putting limits on the number that one individual can buy at a time.
I mean, from a PR standpoint too, it's hard to spin your way out of that one because the price is the price.
Yeah.
Yep.
I talked to a pretty long time hardcore gamer in person, and his take was that they don't like the idea that their whole experience in online gaming is going to be financialized, that it's just going to get very expensive, I guess. But to some extent, I think that's going to happen no matter what, because they're doing it.
And there could be a market for both. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're getting like, they're making you pay for more DLCs to play certain maps, and like you pay for, a lot of times they're doing the same thing as NFTs. It's just a proprietary database where it's like people are like World of Warcraft players are selling accounts for exorbitant amounts of money to get like special skins and all this other stuff, right? So it's not like NFTs that are bringing that, but maybe
I feel like that's technically forbidden though. Like you're not supposed to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
Like that goes counter to the terms of service, and if they actually caught you like selling your character, selling weapons or something like that, that you could be banned and removed. Not that everyone doesn't do it anyway, but
you can have your keyboard fingers cut off actually in some countries.
But to like have it endorsed by the gaming company, I think would just sort of make it a free for all. Plus, there is definitely some component of it that gaming companies already are insanely powerful. Gaming is a bigger industry money-wise than both movies and music combined.
Yeah.
They are not cash strapped by any means. And I'm sure it slightly feels like a bit of a grab that like they're like, oh, now we can just, in addition to paying $60, $70, or for like pre-release big games, $100 plus for a video game, now every single transaction that you have in game is monetized and is going to cost you money.
If it's a decentralized game with NFTs, it feels a little different, maybe, is the thing. But when it's like a centralized game studio doing NFTs, then it's like, well, at the end of the day, somebody's still profiting hugely from this. Whereas if it's like more of a DAO or an Axie Infinity or something like this, like maybe it feels more.
I mean, there's no denying the growth of Axie. Like if you're in an ecosystem that's starting off small and everybody's making money as it grows, like it's kind of hard to hate that if you're a participant.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And it gets attractive to other people because they say like, all right, maybe I play Call of Duty and I have fun, but then I also sometimes play Axie and make money.
So maybe that's going to be the way it has to go. Like the big winners in this space are going to have been like grassroots grown natively in the decentralized era, and it's not going to be any of the big game studios that are going to succeed in convincing their customers.
Out of those studios too, they'd never cut people in on a significant amount of a profit, anyways. I don't think. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it would be interesting to see who can successfully bridge the gap of play to pay sort of thing. A lot of the games that have NFTs that have games attached to them that I've seen all try to advertise like some sort of payment system where like either you're earning a token or you are competing for other NFTs, or there's like some monetized thing that is supposed to incentivize people to want to own the NFT, to want to like actually buy them in secondary markets, make them worthwhile. But that's a very complex economic system. So It's going to be interesting to see who actually does that successfully, because I feel like as some of these start to pan out and the games for them are actually released, I think a few of them are just going to crash and burn because the design isn't really effective.
I definitely agree with that. It's so hard to tell like where the diamonds in the rough are here, like a hurricane of different projects, and a lot of them are not going to succeed. Anyway, Coop, how goes it on the exchange front? Any news for the Trip team? I know we expected a listing this week. Are we on track for that?
Maybe I got a message today that I can do the front end tests, like a front end deposit withdrawal, do trading. In theory, that could mean tomorrow, might mean Friday. I don't know if we want to do a Friday release or not. So it might be beginning of next week, depending on how testing goes, and then if we need any more time for the market maker algorithms and stuff to get built out.
Yeah, I'm tempted to say that at this point, like we can probably do a Friday release if it's if it gets delayed to Friday. There's no sense in delaying it more over the weekend. I think maybe at certain times under different conditions in a different climate, Fridays weren't ideal, but I don't know, Steve, maybe if you have a different opinion, but I think Friday's probably fine.
Yeah, I don't really see an issue with it.
Yeah.
Especially heading into holidays.
Yeah. And I think we've got a few more in the pipeline. So if we can get this one out and maybe start honing in on the next one. I mean, it's exciting. I mean, we've, there was a few months there where we had some backlog and it was difficult. We were rearranging the back end and, a lot of listings weren't coming to fruition. And now we're trying to come out with as many as we can. So I think customers will be, if not pleased, at least interested in the fact that we are putting a few more things on the table.
I definitely think so. It'll be sort of nice once we get consensus to some degree. Has been that the very first round of listings, like the original 1.0 stuff, was really mishmash. Like there were a couple of interesting things, or at least interesting things at the time that we were doing listing for that and planning on launching. You know, as goes with crypto, a lot of those things didn't really pan out. And so a lot of those listings ended up not being super interesting or fruitful for either side, users or the exchange. And I think once we kind of reestablish a better solid base, and as we kind of hone in on the system, we'll be a little lighter on our feet in terms of being able to list up and coming things, list things as they are becoming relevant, as opposed to when they are already relevant, if that makes sense. We're still going to be a little pinned down by regulation. It just is what it is, you know, but I think we'll have a better chance of being able to do that going forward.
Yeah, I think some of our new partners, you know, these are like some of the best in the business globally. And so being part of that network, I think just allows for some more, like you said, light on your feet opportunities. We can stay more current with, you know, what's trending and that sort of thing, which, you know, we sent out an email to our customer base about the custody migration because some of their deposit addresses are going to be changing. So by the way, if you're listening to this, just make sure you peep that. We'll send out some more messaging well before the actual migration happens. But that custody migration is an example of a new partnership that's going to sort of open up some more doors on that front, which I think some of that is like they have an interesting sort of internal network because they work with so many different crypto exchanges and, you know, entities worldwide. They have sort of an internal asset transfer network. Is that right, Cooper? So a lot of things can move a little more quickly.
And it's sort of up to each individual entity how much they want to be involved in that. But it is very much possible to build out a walled garden and make it so that you can move, at least from the back end, you can move assets between different platforms very quickly, which ultimately makes it easier for us in terms of, you know, rebalancing and things like that, which means that we can provide better, more balanced books on more assets more easily. You know, there's just kind of a lot of benefits to that. But it also means that as other people demand new assets be made available, as the demand for certain things grows, different ecosystems, different chains, a lot more people will be sort of ruling new listings and things by consensus, which is great in terms of having, you know, a lot of assets that people want to be able to move around. There's always that sort of trade-off. People want something to some degree that they can't find anywhere else. You know, they want low cap gems or whatever you want to call them, because that will inherently, you know, bring a lot of people to the exchange, ideally, you know, if they can't find it anywhere else. But, you know, from our experience, the things that get the most trading volume are often the biggest.
Yeah, as opposed to the small cap gems, it's the big players, it's the top 10 currencies that get the most actual trading, which brings up another good point is that a lot of these small cap gems that bring a lot of customers that are a fan of that token to the exchange, it's sort of a mercenary customer base. And I don't mean that in any bad connotation. It's just like that's their coin and they're not really there for other coins or necessarily because they enjoy trading at a high frequency. It's just, you know, this is where I on and offload my coin sort of thing.
Yeah, which is fine as far as it goes, but it does have that sort of drawback in that it's not like consistent volume. It's generating $1 million a day in one specific token. It's as that token, you know, rises in price, you know, more people will be offloading it, that sort of thing. I mean, we've certainly seen that before with a couple of different assets, and we like having the volume when it does happen. But then places like CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko actually monitor every single pair and how frequently it's traded and how much volume is traded on it. So if we listed a lot of these things where volume is really sporadic, then it ends up hurting us in the long run in terms of, you know, visibility and our global ranking on aggregator sites.
Yeah, so I think some listeners might be interested to know that part of our strategy here is to create the most conducive overall traders environment, right? So that means a lot of times big cap coins that have globally high trading volume. And I think that we've seen that work super well in terms of growing the exchange with some of our key traders who, have specialized programs for triangular arbitrage, for example. We sort of worked with them, but worked to produce an environment where this kind of strategies were possible, and it had a profound effect on trading volume. So looking for more opportunities like that is definitely more of a priority. But that's not to say that we're not open to listing small cap gems in addition.
Definitely not. I mean, it has to be a case by case basis, and again, part of that goes back to regulatory concerns. A lot of things that are sort of new and upcoming, particularly in this regulatory landscape, are fantastic from the end user perspective, in that they feel like they can get in, on the ground floor of something before it skyrockets in price. But those sorts of crazy price actions are exactly what regulators are looking for and may hone in on as dangerous or bad for the market. And real or perceived, they will likely go after those projects.
Yeah, it's true. the bigger projects that are global seem to have more shielding, if only because just de facto, they can't find anybody to hang by their shirt collar. But
yeah. And I mean, like, it'll affect big projects too. Like, the battle with XRP is still ongoing.
Yeah.
And Coinbase, for example, I think has re-enabled XRP trading and deposits and withdrawals and stuff. But to be fair, Coinbase also has insanely deep pockets and can laugh off a $50 million fine.
Yeah, true.
And do pretty regularly, I feel like. So they're sort of playing the odds at this point that either the outcome for XRP will be favorable, or it will be not so bad that they can't just, pay a fine and delist it when it's necessary. We certainly don't have the kind of resources to be able to play that particular numbers game.
Yeah, one thing's for certain, though, is that XRP battle is not as cut and dry as, I don't know, it may have seemed at the outset that, the SEC was going to guillotine XRP. It seems like, that lawsuit's been a bit of a back and forth, and we're a neutral party just sitting here waiting to see what comes out of it. But it's definitely interesting to follow the developments, because it will have massive ripple effects on the industry. Well, not to be too punny, but ripple
That's
effects.
Great pun.
Well done.
Anyway, so much for exchange ops. Moving to our other business segment here real quick. And we've got about 10 minutes or so on the CFX widget. How are things developing there?
Still looking to sort of incorporate the whole structure of the vast empire. It's a little bit difficult it's normally difficult to get people on opposite sides of the world on a call together, but with Brian in California at the moment, just adding an extra couple hours to the time difference, having trouble getting everyone together to figure out what that looks like.
Complicates everything. Any more successful test transactions?
None that I've seen. I think they're sort of waiting to see how this plays out before they start doing anything large. Like at this point, as far as testing goes, it works. It definitely works. We know that it works on the back end. They know how to incorporate it into various CRMs. And, from a functional standpoint, it's good to go. Now it's just a matter of building it out. There is additionally a practical reason on the back end that we're waiting, or sort of waiting. We would like to be moving forward, at least with contracts or paperwork or whatever, if that, in whatever capacity that needs to happen. But also, as we move to Fireblocks, we don't know for certain how the wallet structure is going to be set up. And we need the backend systems to be able to generate all of those wallet addresses and to know for certain what those API calls are going to look like. It shouldn't change anything with the widget, but shouldn't and won't are unfortunately
Not bedfellows.
yeah, both still very real possibilities.
Okay. Well, at least a lot of promise on that front, and things are.
Oh yeah. We're in that sort of frustrating period where it's pretty much inevitable at this point that it's going to push through, but it's just actually hammering in the pegs, hammering all those square pegs into round holes and just making it happen. Obviously complicated by holidays and end of year stuff where everyone is kind of scrambling to get all of their ducks in a row.
Yeah, either scrambling or like shutting down, both ways.
Yeah. I forget, you were on board, by this time last year.
Yeah. Except everything was really pumping this time last year, so it was really cool because this was like heart of the extreme growth phase for Bitcoin price. So bags were just getting fatter by the day, and everybody was super exhilarated.
Yeah, just high spirits all around. Everyone just like proclaiming what islands they were going to buy.
Speaking of which, Steve, what happened to Solana?
It's hanging around. I think it bottomed out around 152, which was a really hard line support that if it lost that, it was going to start to look really ugly. And to be honest, I'm not sure that it still won't do that in the short or medium term.
Didn't it have some...
But it rebounded a little bit.
Wasn't there some additional technical, I don't know if weren't they getting DDoS or something like that? I don't know if that was
people were saying it was a DDoS and there was downtime, and then their devs was saying there was no DDoS and no downtime. So, I couldn't tell exactly what happened. I have to look more into that. But there was a day a few months ago where it was literally out of service for a day, which I've never seen on Ethereum or Bitcoin or anything.
Oh, yeah.
Which still, in total, when you divide that about all the time it's been up, it's an incredibly small amount of downtime, but it's concerning. When you're in a pinch and you need to move money, crypto is not the world where it should be shut down ever.
The most recent thing was the slowdown, the theoretical DDoS or whatever, I guess cast some doubt on, the proof of history model.
It just seems to be so resource intensive.
Yeah, they were basically saying that they questioned whether or not this was like a viable model and format for creating all of these different transactions. I read a little bit about it, but it's still a little alien to me.
That's interesting. Because I was under the impression that because proof of history sort of generated faster, cheaper transactions, that it was not as resource intensive. But I have heard, that Solana can be a resource hog. So is it the fact that it uses a lot of resources, it just is faster?
From my understanding, yes. To make things faster and cheaper, part of it is that you don't have to have everything synced completely. All of the clocks don't have to be perfectly synced and stuff like that. To keep the consensus can be generated in another way. I didn't get too deeply into it, but
okay.
I think that ends up meaning a lot more constant communication between all of the nodes.
Okay, that makes sense. There's a viable niche for Solana there if it can keep with the pack, though. I think just a lot of people believe that because it can scale better if the proof of history model stays intact, it'll be well set up to stay in the top 3. I think that's most of the time that we have for today. So I'm going to dive into some stuff here, but I'll give you guys a call back here in a little bit.
Sounds good.
All
right.
Later, guys.
Thanks for joining us on Team Call. We'd love to connect with you outside of the podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Beaxy Exchange and at Bade Bitcoin. You can also find us on YouTube by searching Beaxy Exchange and at Beaxy, BEAXY.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, cheers.
Thank you for calling.